Can Muslim women invest in the stock market? And if yes, how do you do it without compromising your faith? Here's what I hear all the time from women in the GCC. I want to invest, but I'm not sure if it's halal. I tried to research it and now I'm more confused than before. My husband invests, my brother invests, but no one ever explained it to me. I hear you, and this video is for you. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what halal investing is, how the screening system works, and how you can build a halal portfolio starting from zero. No jargon, no guilt, just the actual information you need. Before we go deeper, quick disclaimer, I am a financial educator, not a financial advisor, and I am definitely not a Sharia scholar. Everything I share in this video is based on my own research and is for educational purposes only. For Sharia-specific questions about your personal situation, please consult a qualified scholar. Right, let's get into it. First things first, what does halal investing actually mean? Halal investing means investing in a way that is compliant with Islamic law, also called Sharia law. And there are three core principles you need to understand. Three Arabic words that will make everything else click. Number one, riba. Riba means interest. And in Islamic finance, earning or paying interest is forbidden. The reason? The idea is that money cannot make money by itself. If I lend you money and you automatically owe me more back just because time passed, one side wins automatically. And that's not considered fair. Risk must be shared. And that's why conventional banks are excluded, because their entire model runs on interest. Number two, Gharar. Gharar means excessive uncertainty. Think derivatives, options, futures, short selling. These are essentially bets on future prices, not actual ownership of real assets. In halal investing, you must own what you trade. Contracts must be clear. No speculation on things that don't exist yet. Number three, haram sectors. Some industries are simply off the table. Regardless of how the company's finances look, these include alcohol, pork, gambling, weapons, tobacco, adult content, and conventional banking and insurance. Now, knowing the rules is one thing, but how does it actually work when you want to buy a stock? Every investment must pass three filters. Think of it like a job interview with 3 rounds. You have to pass all 3 to get in. Filter number 1, the business screen. What does the company actually do? If more than 5% of its revenue comes from haram activities, it's out. Simple. Filter number 2, the financial screen. Here's where it gets interesting, because even a perfectly clean business can fail this test. The company's interest-bearing debt must be less than 30 to 33% of its market cap, and its non-compliant income must be less than 5% of total revenue. Why? Because even if a company sells something totally permissible, if it is drowning in interest-bearing debt, or earning significant interest from parking its cash in bonds, it is still participating in the riba system. And filter number 3, purification. This one most people don't know about and is very important. Here's the reality. Even a company that passes both screens might still earn a tiny percentage of income from non-compliant sources, maybe 2%, 3%. It's under the threshold, so it qualifies as halal, but that small amount of income is considered tainted. So what do? You purify it, and this is called tathir in Arabic. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing correctly. When you receive dividends or sell shares for a profit, you calculate that same percentage of your return and donate it to charity. You do not keep the tainted portion. You give it away. So we have 3 filters. Filter number 1, clean business. Filter number 2, clean finances. Filter number 3, purify what slips through. For example, some companies that are halal as of the time of recording this video are Apple, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson's. Companies that are not: Visa, MasterCard, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Chase, Coca-Cola. Now, here's the part people don't always realize. A halal portfolio is structurally heavy on tech and healthcare and has basically zero exposure to conventional finance. A regular S&P 500 fund is about 32% tech. A halal S&P 500 fund is about 45% tech. Since 2019, that has been phenomenal. Tech exploded, banks struggled, halal ETFs outperformed the S&P 500. But if I need to be honest with you, when tech corrects, you will feel it harder. That concentration is a real risk. I will talk about that in the limitation section because I always want to give you the full picture. So now you're probably thinking, okay, how do I actually check if a stock is halal or not? You do not have to figure this out alone. There are apps built specifically for this like Zoya, Baraka, and Musafa. By the way, this is not sponsored. Do your own research and pick what works for you. If you find this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps more Muslim women find this content. And if you have a question, any question at all, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Now, who actually decides what is halal and what is not? Because here's the reality. There is no single global standard. You have the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, AOIFI, which sets Sharia standards widely used in the GCC. And then you have index providers like S&P, MSCI, FTSE, and each with their own Islamic screening methodology. And they do not always agree. Why does this matter to you? Because the same stock can be halal in one app and non-halal in another one. And it comes down to which methodology is the app using. Take Microsoft. SPUS includes Microsoft in its halal S&P 500 fund. But Musafa at certain points has flagged it as non-compliant. Why? Because Microsoft earned billions in interest from its cash pile, and it has a $13 billion investment in OpenAI, whose Sharia status is genuinely debated. Who is right? Honestly, both are applying their methodology correctly. This is not a mistake. It is the reality of a system with no global standardization. So run to screeners. If they agree, you have good confidence. If they disagree, dig into why. Check which standard each one uses, and if you are genuinely unsure, consult a Sharia scholar. Halal ETFs exist and they are good. Let me show you the numbers first. SPUS, which is the SP Fund's S&P 500 Sharia ETF, has returned approximately 16.9% per year since 2019. The regular S&P 500 returned 13.7% per year in the same period. Halal does not mean sacrifice. The data shows that. Here are popular Sharia compliant ETFs you can look into. SPUS if you are US based, or ISDU and ISDW if you prefer Ireland domiciled funds. ISDU tracks mid and large firms in the US, and ISDW tracks large companies in developed countries. Both are Ireland domiciled, which matters for non-US investors because of the dividend withholding tax advantage. If you want to learn more about why choosing Ireland domiciled ETFs helps save on taxes as a non-US investor, you must watch this video. Link in the description. The key question when evaluating any halal ETF is always who certified it and which Sharia board reviewed it. Now, there are some limitations that is important to be aware of. Number one, there is no global standard. Different scholars, different verdicts. AOIFI, MSCI, S&P, FTSE, Dow Jones, they are all legitimate. They are all different. The same stock can be halal on one screener and flagged on another. You can never fully outsource your due diligence to one app. Number two, tech concentration risk. A halal portfolio is heavy in tech and has essentially zero exposure to conventional finance. Since 2019, tech won and banks struggled, so halal outperformed. But this will not always be the case. When tech corrects and tech does correct, you will feel it harder than a fully diversified conventional portfolio. That is a trade-off. Number three, higher fees. SPUS charges 0.45% per year. VU charges 0.03% per year. So you are paying for Sharia oversight, for the scholars, for the screening and certifications. That is a real cost. Number four, compliance is dynamic. A company that is halal today can take on more debt next quarter and become non-compliant. This is why you set up alerts in your app. Number five, new debates are unfolding right now. Bitcoin, AI companies, decentralized finance, tokenizations. Scholars are actively discussing all of this. What is considered halal today might be questioned tomorrow. But knowing is only half of it. The other half is actually starting. And I know that is the hardest part because you want to get it right. You do not want to make a mistake. You want to understand everything perfectly before you put in a single dollar. I get it. I was exactly the same. But here's the truth. Perfection is the enemy of progress, and every month you wait is a month your money is not compounding for you. If you're ready to go from knowing to actually doing, I run a live investing event called Ready, Set, Invest Bootcamp. It's a 3-hour live event where I walk you through the stock market essentials, help you build your financial freedom plan, and I show you how to make your first investment. It's designed for women who are smart, accomplished, and absolutely done waiting to take control of their money. You will find the link in the description. Listen, the stock market was not built with Muslim women in mind. That is just the truth. But that is changing, and now we have options. There are apps, ETFs, screeners, and accessible knowledge. You are not behind, you are not excluded, and you do not have to choose between your faith and your financial future. You just need the right information and guidance. I hope this was helpful. I will see you in the next video.